The Lone Ranger has always been sold as a white, masked hero riding alone across the frontier. But the real Old West tells a very different story. One history worked hard to bury. Long before Hollywood rewrote the narrative, thousands of black men and women lived, fought, hunted criminals, and enforced the law across the frontier, often doing the same jobs, later given to fictional white heroes. These were not side characters. They were scouts, deputies, marshals, cowboys, and gunfighters whose courage shaped the West End, whose names were quietly erased when the legends were written. Reeves was the closest thing America ever had to a real Lone Ranger, and yet for decades, his story was ignored. Born into slavery, Reeves escaped into Indian Territory and survived by mastering tracking, disguise, and firearms. When he became a U.S. deputy marshal, he arrested more than 3,000 dangerous criminals often riding alone into hostile territory. He was known for wearing disguises, outsmarting outlaws, and bringing them in without unnecessary bloodshed. Sound familiar? Reeves never wore a mask, but he lived the life the Lone Ranger pretended to have. He died quietly, respected by those who knew him, and forgotten by a nation unwilling to credit a black man as a frontier hero. Nat Love, known as Deadwood Dick, was another legend erased by time. A skilled cowboy and fearless rider, Love survived gunfights, stampedes, and ambushes that killed others around him. He won roping contests, survived capture by hostile forces, and lived long enough to write his own autobiography. Yet Hollywood ignored his words. His life proved that black cowboys were not rare exceptions, but essential to the survival of the cattle industry itself. Stagecoach Mary Field stood over 6 feet tall, carried guns openly, and fought men who disrespected her. She delivered mail through blizzards and bandit territory, becoming the first black female star route mail carrier in the West. Locals feared her temper and trusted her courage. She drank, smoked, swore, and protected her route without apology. If legends were written honestly, her name would be carved into frontier mythology alongside the most famous lowmen. Bill Pickett revolutionized rodeo by inventing bulldogging steers to the ground using raw strength and fearless technique. White performers copied his style and claimed it as their own, while Pickett was barred from competing in many events because of his race. The sport made millions, but the man who created it died without the recognition he deserved. Isom Dart was a skilled rancher turned outlaw, hunted relentlessly by lowmen. His story was twisted into a criminal stereotype, ignoring the economic desperation and racial barriers that pushed him to the edge. When he was finally killed, newspapers framed his death as justice served, never asking why so many black men were denied lawful paths in the first place. Black lowmen patrolled towns, guarded railroads, and stood between settlers and chaos. But photographs were hidden, names misspelled, and stories reassigned. Entire communities of black pioneers, teachers, ranchers, builders, and soldiers were erased. To preserve the myth of a white-only frontier, the Lone Ranger wasn't a fantasy because heroes didn't exist. He was a fantasy because the real heroes didn't fit the story America wanted to tell. These men and women didn't ride alone by choice. They were pushed into isolation by history itself. Their bravery was real, their danger constant, and their contributions undeniable. The Old West was never as simple as Hollywood claimed, and the real Lone Rangers were there all along, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the truth to catch up.